BNC, 100% black and brown host all day. Finally, news that speaks to us.
Judge KetanjiBrownJackson's confirmation hearings are now over.
As a black woman myself, I urge this body to remember that Judge Jackson's confirmation vote must not be isolated to her gender or to her race. Instead, I urge you to closely examine her credentials and her sterling judicial record.
All of this subverts the safety of the public and is most detrimental to the very voices Judge Jackson claims to speak for. I've heard nothing this week to alleviate my fear that Judge Jackson believes that a fundamental redesign is needed in our criminal justice system, and that she would be so inclined to use her position on the court to this end. For this reason, I respectfully oppose her nomination.
She calls balls and strikes. She's fair. We would be happy to go before her again in cases. We also create into her reputation because, as you know, folks talk and they mingle and they're out in the evenings at bars, and her reputation is stellar.
Every lawyer and judge promises to defend and protect the U.S. Constitution, but she cannot uphold this oath if she believes that the Constitution and the principles of America's founding are inherently racist and inherently flawed. Ultimately, a judge should consider America's history as a lesson and a blueprint for why and how we must constantly seek to uphold and protect America's founding promises. For these reasons, First Liberty opposes the nomination.
After 2 days of intense questioning from the Republicans and Democrats on the Judiciary Committee, Judge Jackson's hearings came to a close with testimony from legal scholars, witnesses, and experts from the American Bar Association expressing why they do or don't approve of her confirmation. Here with me now to break down the hearings is BNC political contributor Ameshia Cross and also political strategist Kierran Young. Thanks to both of you for joining us today. All right, Republicans, we'll start with critical race theory. They brought it up. Take a listen to this exchange and I'll have you both react.
Another portion of the book, they recommend to babies confess when being racist. Now, this is a book that is taught at Georgetown Day School to students in pre-K through second grade, so 4 through 7 years old. Do you agree with this book that is being taught with kids that babies are racist?
Senator, I do not believe that any child should be made to feel as though they are racist or though they are not valued or though they are less than, that they are victims, that they are oppressors. I don't believe in any of that. But what I will say is that when you asked me whether or not this was taught in schools, critical race theory, my understanding is that critical race theory as an academic theory is taught in law schools, and to the extent that you were asking the question, I understood you to be addressing public schools. Georgetown Day School, just like the religious school that Justice Barrett was on the board of, is a private school.
Ameshia, ladies first. I'm going to have you respond to that.
I think that what we heard from the judge is actually pitch perfect. As somebody who's worked in education for a very long time, this is actually my education office right here. There's a big difference between private school and public school, what's allowed in curriculum, what isn't allowed in curriculum. And if you've ever sat on the board of any education institution, you recognize that you don't decide curriculum. This was a very interesting pivot for the Republicans, and one that was expected because they want to use all the ticker points to get their base out. And they know that CRT, critical race theory, is one of the top line agenda items. What I can say about that book particularly, one, we know that that the judge was not an author of said book. She's not a promoter of said book. But we do know that now, because of what we saw from the senator, that book is now #1 on Amazon. With that being said, I think that we need to fully understand what he was trying to do there. Critical race theory, being anti-Black, talking about the achievements of Black people, and elevating some of the white supremacist narratives that continue to go on throughout and permeate throughout our society are of a great detriment to the Republican Party. And even though we had not seen that in Ketanji Brown Jackson in any way, it was something that was consistently hit upon, not only within that clip you just showed, but throughout the course of 3.5 days.
And Kierran, what are your thoughts?
As someone who's lived in Texas, I really do wish Ted Cruz would focus more on the public education of Texas children. He has failing schools all across the state that don't get nearly their fair share of federal funding nor state funding, but yet and still he's focused on Georgetown Country Day School and what they're teaching, kids who are in the 3rd grade or in kindergarten. If he focused so much on the students in the state of Texas, maybe their test scores would be better at reading and math in the 3rd grade, and maybe we'd be competing with other countries around the world, and we'd have world-class education. But instead, he's focused on the curriculum of a private school that has no bearing on the education of the children of this country. And it's just disgusting to me that he's grandstanding and using this opportunity to attack a Black woman when he should be working to improve the educational outcomes of children in Texas.
I would also argue that the book that
so
was mentioned
critical race-
isn't a part of Georgetown Day School's curriculum. As in all elementary schools across America, there are bookshelves that have several books that are typically books that are in the American canon, that are on the top 10, top 25 list of children's books from various sources, and that those books are typically read within those classrooms at certain times. That is not a part of Georgetown Day School's curriculum either. Neither is CRT in the public or private setting in any K-12 setting in America actually being taught.
So the other criticism was that she is not tough on crime, and they chose to focus on child porn cases. Let's take a listen to an exchange here with Judge Jackson's reaction to this.
This is a case where you had an 18-year-old who possessed and distributed hundreds of images of 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds, and you gave him, frankly, a slap on the wrist sentence of 3 months.
Senator,
Do you regret it?
I don't remember whether it was distribution or possession. In
it was
the law,
both. Do you regret it?
In the law, there are different crimes that people commit.
Judge, you
in
gave
this
him
area.
3 months. My question is, do you regret it or not?
Senator, what I regret is that in a hearing about my qualifications to be a justice on the Supreme Court, we've spent a lot of time focusing on this small subset of my sentences.
I want to bring in another panelist, Christopher Bruce, the political director of Georgia's ACLU. I'm going to start with you and get your reaction about what you just heard there from her describing these criticisms of her ruling on these child porn cases.
Well, yes, thank you for inviting me on. I want to first start off by saying, look at the demeanor of this judge who is literally being berated in front of these senators, almost in an insulting type of manner. When it comes down to it, Judge Brown has really held herself to the highest standards when you've seen other justices or nominees being questioned and have gone off on senators in wholehearted fashions of that you would not believe is the decorum of the Senate. So again, hands off for her for being able to hold herself up to such a high standard in such a low stakes type of situation. Now, let me be clear. It is always in any type of ruling should be up to be questioned by any judge who's going up for the Supreme Court. The Senate has approval and consent authority within it. And you as a judge, you should be able to go up and actually explain your answers. The judge has explained her answers several times before. It was a waste of the committee's time. It was a waste of the American people's time. And again, held herself to an upstanding standard when it comes to answering this question over and over again. The question was uncalled for. It's already been asked and answered. There is no reason why that small brief time when she was a trial judge that you're still bringing up issues that really Congress and the United States Senate could actually do something about. If you do not like the way the law is put forth and the sentencing guidelines, then you, senator, can actually change that as a senator. That is the thing. She can't do that. So I would have really pushed it back on him and saying, stop looking at me and start looking at yourself in the legislative body that she is sworn to uphold the laws of the United States of America. So again, Judge Brown, she's doing a great job up there that I don't think that most anybody else has really done as well, being attacked on the Supreme Court as a nominee.
Yeah, I want to talk about just her performance there. You did mention that she was poised and whatnot. Ameshia, is there anything that you think stood out that could hurt her?
Absolutely not. I think that the Republicans threw everything that they thought was going to stick. They were trying to use ticker points to get their base to turn out. But KetanjiBrownJackson, she did not get off her square one time. And I respect it because she was badgered up there. We saw what happened with Josh Hawley. Both him and probably Lindsey Graham were some of the worst when it came to the way they spoke to her, the way they looked at her, the level of egregious attacks that they lobbed upon her. And she was still able to stand firm, not only in who she is, but also her record. And I think that that's one of the things that she continually brought them back to. To Chris's point a moment ago, no, it wasn't mentioned that the Senate actually sets these rules during that exchange with Josh Hawley, but it was mentioned multiple times with both Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham. So I think it was, pitch perfect that this is a judge who made it very clear she is not running for elected office, and that a lot of the things they were asking her were more prone to ask their fellow members of the Senate, and quite frankly themselves, more than it was her while she was there. In addition to the commentary about how they felt Amy Coney Barrett was treated, or how they felt that Justice Kavanaugh was treated when he was going through the confirmation hearings. None of those things have any bit of interest for the current process, nor should have been posited to KetanjiBrownJackson anyway, because she was not a senator. She had nothing to do with that process, and this is her hearing, not theirs.
Kierran, what about you? Do you agree with Ameshia that she has nothing to worry about and that there wasn't anything that stood out that might hurt her?
I do. I think Lindsey Graham and Josh Hawley and some of the Republican senators were just doing the bidding of the Federalist Society because Brett Kavanaugh, their golden boy, didn't get through with a smooth confirmation. So they feel that they have to dirty up a Black woman. The other thing that I see here is a woman who is on the Sentencing Reform Commission. Criminal justice reform and sentencing reform has been a bipartisan issue, and now all of a sudden, because a Black woman is trying to be on the highest court in the land, now we have a problem with criminal justice and sentencing reform, when in a lot of states around the country, Republicans have been looking at prisons as a way to cut bloated state budgets. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're criticizing a Black woman for doing something that, Republicans and Democrats agree on, which is lowering sentences and getting people out of prison and off the rolls of the state effectively. Prisoners cost more than college. It costs more to send somebody to prison than it does to send somebody to college. So I really do think that these attacks are just unfounded, and it's literally just because they have a Black woman that they have to attack, and the Federalist Society is upset that Brett Kavanaugh didn't sail through smoothly.
And we're almost out of time, but Chris, I want to hear your final thoughts as well.
My final thoughts are basically America is going to America. I think that we've all seen that. The issues that we've dealt with America about holding down people of color, especially Black women, are coming to fruition, and it's being seen in this court here, in the judiciary hearing for Judge Jackson. Again, her poise, her demeanor, everything really is the upstanding part of America that we should embrace, and her nomination has already sent out reverberations throughout this country and the world. I look forward to her actually being on the Supreme Court of the United States of America.